Welcome to another episode on the Move Talk Thrive podcast. Today, I had the privilege with Lizzy to interview the amazing Alana Nicholls. Now, Alana Nicholls, for the past 20 years, she is the founder and CEO of ProPurpose. She has been building a growing purpose-driven business in Australia under the banner of Platinum Electricians with her husband, Joshua. From a young startup, they've now built a countrywide brand that has directed over $1.1 million of profit towards overcoming poverty and disadvantage. Alana now has 10 years of experience in helping businesses uncover their hidden purpose and connect it to charitable impact. And so she has launched ProPurpose recently. And ProPurpose is a non-for-profit that exists to make giving with purpose simple for businesses, with a custom-built giving strategy, trackable and tangible impact, and the tools to share your impact loudly and proudly. Businesses all over Australia, including Speak About and Kids Heart Pilates, are joining the ProPurpose movement and connecting their profit to purpose, while also connecting with the ProPurpose community. So Alana is also a very good friend of mine. And in the episode today, we talk about imposter syndrome and what she has experienced over her 20 years in her career with her husband, Joshua. And she really sheds some light on imposter syndrome and how we probably shouldn't be using that word anymore, and how we really should be thinking about ourselves in light of our careers and as professionals. So listen in and enjoy.
We are child development obsessed, business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzy Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move Talk Thrive podcast.
Having me, ladies.
You're very excited
today. Yes, I am really looking forward to this conversation. So Alana is one of my, part of my business posse friends. We've known each other for a couple of years now, haven't we?
Yep, we have.
We met through another mutual friend, and Alana is somebody who has constantly inspired me, and you will hear as we talk about her story, has constantly inspired me and encouraged me in my business. And I'm always sharing her words of wisdom with Lizzy. So I was like, let's get together, let's do an episode, and let's see what goodness we can bring. So
nice. No pressure. Okay, here we go, Lizzy.
I am so excited for this conversation because I've heard so much about you, and it's just nice to have the opportunity to chat about everything that you do.
Yeah, great. Well, it's so cool to be on your podcast together and seeing. I love how you pause there, Emily, and like one of my business, you're like, I can't say business bestie because that's Lizzy. I'm like, I'm not taking that spot. But I love seeing when people come together in that spirit of collaboration and create wonderful things. And so it's an absolute honor to be here with you girls.
Well, let's start. Well, we'd love to know at the beginning, I guess, because our listeners are predominantly speechies. Lizzy is an exercise physiologist, OTs. We do have business owners and educators, but you're not from that world. What world are you from?
What am I from?
Yeah.
Wow, I wear many hats. I guess the world I find myself in now is in this world of business and also charitable impact and philanthropy. And so now I am the CEO and founder of ProPurpose, and we're a growing movement across Australia of businesses that are profit for purpose. And we have a goal over the next few years, by 2035, to have 70,000 ProPurpose businesses collectively giving $1 billion towards charitable impact. So that's kind of the world I find myself in now.
Amazing. So and Speak About is a part of that. So
yes, so privileged to have Speak About as a ProPurpose business.
Yeah, we have our 4 little kiddos that we sponsor in Uganda. And actually, Alana really has played a big role in my in our business trying to figure out how to give back, because we found that there were so many different things that we could do. And so you really helped me understand how to be generous in business, because a lot of the times people in business think, well, you know, I'll just do this all for myself, but how to create that impact, but then also align it with being a speechy and being invested in children and trying to shape that next generation of children coming up. And so then we worked together, and you helped me find School for Life, which is who we work with and who our children are with, which has been amazing. But so that's just a side note. But I want to take it back. So did you start your career in ProPurpose, or what were you doing before?
Yeah. So I guess my career, I started studying when I was young. I finished school in year 12, and I thought, oh, I don't want to do uni, only because I thought you go to uni for 4 years, half of the time you're not there. I'm like, is there a faster way to do this? And so I actually went to business college, and then within 18 months I had what back then was an advanced diploma. And then I started working. So I started my career, and then at night and on the weekends, I finished my degree. So by the time 4 years had gone past, I already had 2 years experience in the workforce, whilst everyone had only just finished uni. So I was in business and marketing. That was my background. But how I guess my career started, I went into a marketing role straight out of uni and straight out of college. But my husband and I, we started dating at a really young age. And so we were already dating for a little while. I was in my first year of college, and he said, I think I want to go out and start my own business. He was an electrician. He had finished school at 15. He wasn't good at school, but found himself in a trade. To be honest, it was electrical trade. He didn't even know what he was turning up for. It was back in the day where your mum would ring up and get your apprenticeship, whereas now we have apprentices turn up to our business, and if their mums have rung on their behalf, we say to the mums politely, no, get your son to ring or get your daughter to ring. But back in those days, that's not how it was done. My husband did his apprenticeship, only ever had one job, and then he said, I think I'm going to start my own business. And so I said to him, well, I learned MYOB at college last week. Let's have a crack. And that's literally how we started. And so I was studying, I was working in marketing, and then also helping him on the side. So he would say, I need a timesheet for the boys, or I need an employment agreement, or I need this, or I need that. And so I was always doing stuff on the side for him, until probably a few years in. And then he said, why don't you come and work in the business? And so that was a big decision, because you go to uni and you learn to climb the corporate ladder. But for me, it ended up going into small business. And so worked alongside him. We're now 22 years in business in the trades industry. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Yeah.
20 years. 22 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, so over those 22 years, did your role evolve in that, or what was your role in the business?
Yeah, definitely. It was always in whatever projects needed to happen. So, early days, I'll have a try at bookkeeping, or I need an employment agreement, or I need this or need that. So I very, very quickly found myself in projects. And so there's this saying in business where often business coaches will try and get you to work on the business, not in it. Yeah. And from the very beginning, we actually had the luxury where I wasn't working in it, always on. Yeah. So my husband was always the visionary, and I would always come alongside and say, oh, yep. And I'm the details person, where he's the headlines. And so that always makes a good team, especially in the early days where we work quite closely together. Now we have, teams that do those roles that he and I both used to do. But that was kind of the spirit of it. Then found a lot of time in brand. We were very passionate about customer experience and having a brand. Like, I think for many people, if you, for instance, have had electricians or tradies turn up to your house, brand often isn't the thing they're known for. But we definitely shifted that. Back in the very early days, I think we were one of the first companies, to be honest, that transformed our vehicles into billboard signs, and now it's become the norm. You see all these amazing wrapped vans, but we were one of the very first brands that did that in the trades, and then everyone sort of followed suit. So yeah, definitely brand. And I've always been passionate about, I guess, within that career, I also then shifted into like culture and community.
Oh,
They're
amazing.
very I'm very passionate about that, very dear to my heart. And we actually ended up franchising our business. So when we started franchising and having franchisees all across the country, I am just so passionate about creating communities. So we would have an annual conference in all beautiful locations around the globe. To be honest, it was me and Josh going, where would we like to have a holiday? And let's have a conference there. So it was Bali, it was Thailand. One year we did the bucket list and went to the Maldives. Imagine taking a whole bunch of electricians and wives to the Maldives. That was so good. And so, yeah, that creates community and memories and culture. And so we've always been very passionate about, you know, we've got a lot of staff now, over 100 staff now, but always it's been about culture. And, you know, we have some staff, like we've had a guy, we're 22 years in business. One's just had his 21st anniversary. Like he came through as our first ever apprentice, and, you know, has gone through the business in all different areas and manager of this and that, and lots of opportunity. So I think that's how you can create a thriving team or a thriving business, is when you just really look at what culture are you creating, not just about the bottom line and that type of thing.
So when you say culture, what does that mean? What does that look like? Because a lot of people, like we have students listening, we have new grads coming out. And so often we are so focused on our professional skills, which is what me and Lizzy talk about.
Yeah.
And, what does that look like? Because, you know, in different industries, we can always learn from others.
Yeah.
And what should people be looking for it's a good workplace, like if culture is so defining?
Yeah, I think culture comes down to, like, I call it culture and cultural values. They're very aligned. It's as an organization, as an individual, going, what do I value? How do I want to turn up each day? And so, like, I'm looking across our board right now. So we've got ownership and commitment, honesty and integrity, adaptable to change, team unity, enjoy the journey, communication that builds relationships. We've shifted it a couple of times over the years, but when you're clear on what your core values are, that creates your culture. And I know for us, you know, we would say this to all of our tradies, technicians, and for all of the people listening today who are, whatever your trade might be, it might be in speech therapy, it might be in exercise psychology, or whatever you're doing. But with that, that's your skill. But people won't choose you or choose to come back to you or bring their children back to you or see you for whatever service you provide, product or service, especially in the service industry though. They're not going to come to you because, well, yes, you need to be a great speech pathologist, or you need to be a great electrician, or you need to be great at whatever field you're in. But more often, why you'll get people keep coming back is how you made them feel. And it comes back to the experience. And that's where culture and values all is in this beautiful mix of the experience, and how you often hear that thing, people don't remember what you say or what you did, it's how you made them feel.
And that goes with team too, doesn't it? Like it's
100%.
not just the external clients coming in, but it's within your team.
100%. And that's who will show up for your clients. So when your clients come and they're like, oh, I really just love partnering with this business. It's not the business, the logo. It's not the business, even what you do. Oh, that's great. You do PowerPoints. It's not. It's always comes down to the people. And so I think, as, you know, team members that work in teams, that's why it's really important to align with businesses that you feel, I align with your sense of purpose. I align with your values and the culture. And then when you get that mix right, it's like, oh, watch out.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes people get out of bed in the morning and want to come to work. Like, it's the work's there, but it's the relationships in the workplace, which is between colleagues, but then between parents or between children. Like Lizzy's at home at the moment filming, but she's got her clinicians working at the back, and they've got lots of children coming there. It's that relationship, and relationship is life, right? Like that's what makes us happy and gives us meaning and purpose.
And when it comes to our vocation or our business, we spend more time with our colleagues than we do with sometimes our children or our spouse or partners or family. And so it's important that we have that great synergy there. And so I guess you know, Em, you were saying, have I always done ProPurpose? I'm like, no, but that actually was birthed from a place of that desire to create community and culture and connection. So for instance, in our business, my husband and I, we've always been passionate about business is not about just lining our own pockets and the bottom line profit and all being for us. We've always had a heart to share. We've always wanted that if we have the gifts and talents to create finances, it's not just for us. It's not having a poverty mindset at all and going, oh, we can't have anything, but it's an and mentality. And so, but also just being a steward of being able to help others or give to others. And that's not just in money, it's in all things, generous in our time, in our, time, treasure, talent. So money, time, but also your talent. Sometimes it can just be even generous in being appreciative of people or smiling. Like there's so many ways in how we create culture. But for us, we always wanted our business to have more impact, especially in areas of poverty and disadvantage. Like we all know that there's poverty and disadvantage in Australia and across the globe, but we've just always believed that generous businesses are a vital part of that solution. And so when we started to franchise our business, we thought we've always wanted, as our business grew, to have more impact, but what would that look like? And so that's when we came up with this idea, what about one van, one child? For every van we have on the road, why not sponsor a child? And so that was an invitation for our franchisees as they joined to go, oh, yeah, I can do that. And we had such a high engagement. And so over like a 9-year period, we had over 200 children sponsored. We'd raised $1 million towards water wells and toilet blocks and a whole bunch of things. But we had some people come and join us and become franchisees. And one of the biggest things for them was not so much the brand of Platinum and the electrical and all the knowledge we had in helping businesses grow. But for some, it was literally, the fact that we can do this together around giving back. So, yeah, I guess that's that thing when you're building and showcasing the culture that you want to create, you attract the right people and it becomes a mirror for those that go, oh, no, this isn't for me.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I think it's really good hearing from you, right? Because you're like a lot of our listeners, they're on the other end, like you're so far along, you've developed, like you've had it for 22 years and then now into ProPurpose. And then you've got people at the start going, how do I find a good workplace? And it's like literally just listening to everything Alana just said and looking for that and figuring out what your values are for yourself and aligning yourself. And sometimes it can be very daunting, even at any age, to think bigger than yourself and to think about like people other than yourself. I don't know how else to say that, but often we're so focused on, I've got to get my career, I've got to advance myself, I've got to buy that house or buy that car, which are all fantastic things to have and want. But it's then remembering we can also have bigger visions for our lives and bigger perspectives for our lives and think about that, like think about our careers or our life for the long term and think about like, what impact do I want to have? How can I create that positive change? And most of us here, we've become health professionals because we have that innately in us to help people and to serve people. And so we have that there, and it's thinking, not being afraid to think on a small scale or to think in a small picture, but thinking really big and going, well, I can impact the client in front of me and I can use my skills and my talents that way. But then I can then also impact children that I may never see or may never meet. Hopefully you can, but there is a way that you can actually have a positive ripple from being a speechy or being an EP. And having that bigger picture for your life.
And I think sometimes, again, to that sense of community, is that you're right, Emily, sometimes people think, that people will sometimes get nervous or scared to think big. But sometimes it's fantastic to buddy up with others where you can, I'm really passionate about collective impact. So it's not necessarily about one person and what you can do, but it's like, what if a bunch of us all did a little something and together we can have impact? And I always just think that's a whole much more fun too, rather than trying to be this wonder person that's like, making all this impact by yourself and you're the hero. It's like, no, it's actually, I think we're made to do things in community and celebrate wins together. So
and it's easier, right? Like it's easier. I feel like that's less pressure. Like I feel like when you collaborate with others, it's like me and Emily doing this podcast. Like
100%.
gone and done a podcast, but we were like, oh, let's just do it together so we can just kind of lean in together and help each other out, because it's less daunting that way.
That's right. That's right. And I think we as individuals can just get in our heads too much, and we think things about ourselves that aren't true, like, oh, I'm not good enough, or this or that, which is, to be honest, rubbish. But when you come together, sometimes it's actually that sense of, oh, okay, we can actually do that. You know, our origin story of starting our business, my husband actually started in the early days, and there was a business partner, and it only lasted for 3 months because they were really young, and this guy wanted to chase a girl overseas. And the only reason my husband went into business in the early days was, well, I don't know if I'm confident to do it by myself, but I can do it with a mate. So, you know, you guys have done the same with your podcast. You're like, okay, let's do it together. And I think there's strength in that. But he learned very quickly when he was stranded and went, okay, now I've got to do it myself. And so he had to learn very quickly how to get into sales and get a thriving business. But I think, sometimes we don't rate ourselves as an individual.
A lot of the time, right?
Most of the time.
We're so hard on ourselves. That's why we need our business besties to kind of, you know, encourage each other.
Or to give a third person perspective and go, actually, what you're going through is quite hard at the moment. Just give yourself a bit of grace.
That's right. Yeah.
And or you've done really well. Celebrate your wins.
And if you're on a team, you know, you might not be a business owner, but if you're on a team, it's that camaraderie that you can have with teams. Or if it's a very small organization and you don't have any teammates, it's like, well, how else can I find community? Whether it's on online groups or that type of thing.
Yeah. So how did you, how long has ProPurpose been going for? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, well, it's remorphed and rebranded over time. So when we first started as a nonprofit, it was within Platinum and what we were doing within our franchise network. But I knew from very early days, to be honest, when we launched this idea, One Van, One Child, within 3 months, World Vision reached out to us and said, there's a bus company, loves this idea. They want to become One Bus, One Child. What do you think? So I said, yep, okay, gave them a logo, set them on their way. So I knew back then it was never just going to be about our business, that we would help others. But that idea sat on the shelf for a decade. And that's something that I say to a lot of young people when they've got these aspirations and they're so excited and have vision for something. And it might actually be the right thing, but it just might be not now. And navigating that and our expectations of, we want things so quick. And so even back then I knew, okay, this would not be just about us, but that sat for quite a long time. And then we started to shift and then went, okay, now it's time. And that was 3 years ago. And we started helping other businesses, not just our brand. And then we repositioned that brand as ProPurpose 9 months ago.
Yeah.
How did you know when the time was right?
Great question, Lizzy. How do I know? I think sometimes there's just these moments where you just know and you know.
Yeah.
And I believe in when something's right, there'll be a flow to it. If you find yourself up against a wall, pushing, striving, burnt out, often that'll just be key for this. You're either doing something you're not meant to, or it is what you're meant to do, but just not in the way you were meant to. And so I think it's just dipping toes sometimes and seeing what flows. And to be honest, back when I had the idea, I was like, because I'll move. I created a website, I created copy and went, okay, like I got domain names, I secured things for what I thought the brand would be. And I can't remember why. Maybe I had a child. It was in that season of like young children years. Probably that's what happened. I probably got, anyway, but it was just not yet. And so it's not taking that on as a failure and going, oh, my idea didn't work, but it's just like, okay. And I think that's that thing of being nimble, of being gutsy enough to try, but then go, okay, that didn't work. So I guess when it came back up again, I just think, it was actually really interesting. It was actually in COVID. I thought of all the times to feel that it was the right time to unleash this movement of generosity amongst Australian businesses when it's in COVID, when everyone's freaking out. I'm like, this does not make sense. But it was just this sense of knowing, and it was literally like a chapter had closed and a new one was opening. And so you just go walk into it. And I think sometimes when that happens, you'll find things just align. So in those early days, I spoke to a couple of businesses and said, we're thinking of doing this, and wanted to pilot some ideas. And I would sit with these businesses and they're like, oh, can you build a project for us? Can you do this? And like, I'd be sitting with them and I'd come back and show a project and they would just have tears, and just for different personal reasons of how this connected with their business. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're onto something here. Because I've always been passionate about the charitable impact on the ground. Like to go into a place like Zambia, where we've been, we had over 100 children sponsored in that area, and it was so remote, and it was just so beautiful to see the impact. And I was so inspired by the impact. That was actually the driver for me to go, if our business could do this, imagine if we multiplied it by hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of business. All right, let's do that. But when I started piloting with businesses and saw the transformation that was happening there in their lives as their business was now going to be connected to purpose. I had one woman who was in baby products, and I walked into that environment, into her business, and it was a tough season for her, and she was sharing the hard stuff of business. And then I said to her, well, this is the project that I'm thinking. You do baby products. I think it'd be great to tie it to maternity care in Uganda. And then she just starts crying. And she said, last night I was saying to my husband, I've always had this thing for Uganda. I don't know why. And then you've come in today with this project. And it was just one of those moments. And it was very exciting. I start crying, and then she's crying. We're all crying. But then as we left, she was like so excited to launch her new product, because she's like, oh, this is now giving me a purpose to connect it. And I saw as I left that I had walked in and she was defeated by all the hard stuff of business. Lizzy and Em, your business owners, you know how it is. You're both nodding. And then, but when it's connected to purpose, it was like, oh, I've got some, I'll keep going. I'll keep going, because it's not about me anymore. It's about, she had her heart positioned towards me selling these baby products can help these mothers in Uganda. And then I literally left from that, because we were doing filming and photography with her. Then I moved to another business friend. This is a gentleman, and he does water cycling bottles. And I came to him with a project. I said, I think we should do something with water wells. And I said, and what our charity partners have said they need is not installing new water wells, but restoring them. Ones that are laying there dormant, and you can tweak this or that, and fresh water for the community. Then he starts to cry. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what have I started? He said, Alana, this is my life story. He had come from a broken marriage, from a daughter that had been suffering from leukemia, and he journeyed through this really intense time whilst also running a business. And he had now come to a place where he was now remarried and his child was healthy and well. And he said, I feel like my life story is one of restoration. And now you're saying to me, my project can relate to bringing restoration to communities through water. And so that, like, you start getting glimpses of that and you're like, all right, we're on the right track.
Yeah. Because it's bigger than you, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, Lizzy, and like, how do you know? I think there's a bit of just intuition and just, and
like confirmation from people, like they're telling you that's right, you've done the right thing, like that's really good, you've heard me.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's all easy. There's so many hurdles and things along the way. But I think those moments of clarity and confirmation hold you to what is true in those moments when you start to doubt yourself, or you start to think, am I on the right track? Or this is hard and I want to give up. So, yeah.
And pretty much that can then be applied to anyone across any area, because everybody always is having those feelings or those doubts. Lizzy and I have spoken about this a lot, but particularly when you're doing something new. So when you're starting a new career, or you're taking on a new project, or going into a new workplace, or starting a business, or whatever it is, that's that period of newness where you have all of those feelings and thoughts that come up. We've talked about, we did an episode on imposter syndrome and how that sort of can affect us, and how really imposter syndrome we named it, we know it affects everybody. So like realizing that everyone's in the same boat when we're doing new things. And so what you've just said, that perspective, that can be applied to any area. Doesn't matter where you are in your career or how many years of experience you've got or what industry you're in.
Yes. Yeah. I think that thing of, like, it's funny how you said we've named it, like imposter syndrome. And it's an interesting one. I actually had to Google because I'm like, I keep hearing about this imposter syndrome. I'm like, it's an interesting concept. And so I'm like, I'm like, what, this word imposter? Because it's an interesting one. And I Googled it, went to my dictionary. And it said, an imposter is a person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others, especially for fraudulent gain. And when I read it like that, I'm like, yeah, because to be honest, I've actually have struggled a bit when I've heard that name, that label of imposter syndrome, because I'm like, oh, what is that? And then when you look at it, you're like, yeah, wow. And to be honest, I think most of us are not people who might say, oh, I struggle from imposter syndrome. But if you dial it back and look at the word imposter, I'm like, to be honest, I don't think many of us are trying to do it to deceive others.
No.
Or for
That's
fraudulent.
quite hard, isn't it?
Or for fraudulent gain. So I think even in that sense, we've got to be careful how we label things and what we say about ourselves. I struggle from imposters. I'm like, no, because I'm not an imposter.
No.
But to be able to identify it for what it is. And it is an identity issue. Like when we start to feel, especially with new things, and we feel like we're not good enough, like all of that stuff is true. I'm not good enough. Do I have the skill? Do I belong? Like all of those things. They're all valid things, but I don't think it's under this guise of I'm trying to deceive everyone and for fraudulent gain. So I like to talk it more about identity and going, okay, it's clear. And whenever that's come up for me, it's like my radar goes off going, oh, what's going on here? And I know it's always like an identity issue, and it will always bring up insecurity. And insecurity is just security in the wrong thing. So whenever we feel insecure, it's just like, oh, what's going on here? And then it's learning how to discern how you think, how you feel, how you roll, what triggers you, and then dealing with that. Because this label of imposter syndrome, really this identity crisis we have where we start to doubt ourselves, it's just based on what are we listening to? Are we listening to lies or are we listening to truth? And often when the way we talk to ourselves is terrible. Like we would never speak to our business bestie or our work bestie, or, we're terrible. Like what goes on in this mind of ours is sometimes not good. Often it's not. And so it's just being able to capture those thoughts and go, hang on, is this true about me or is this a lie? Because our identity is actually which voice we're listening to, truth or lies.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great tool to help people to actually learn. Like I studied with someone that helped with this thing called unique self, and understanding your unique temperament and how you're wired, and what might trigger you might be totally different to someone else. What makes you feel insecure is totally different to someone else. And then you start judging yourself going, oh, but they don't struggle with that. Oh my goodness. And then it sends us into a spin. But just that learning of going, no, okay, I know this is how my temperament rolls. I have a high need. For instance, for me, I have a high need to be understood, to be approved, to be accepted. They're my 3 top needs. Very different to my husband's needs. His 3 are totally different. But when I can say, oh, I'm feeling a bit insecure here, it's often got to do with those things.
Yeah.
Teaching yourself not to agree with some of the lies that you start playing in your mind.
Well, it's that awareness, isn't it? Like having that awareness about those, those 3 things that you need as a person.
Yeah.
And then being able to like identify that and then put it in practice and recognize it in real life situations to
100%. Then you can walk in more confidence into the rooms you find yourself, into the opportunities, because often we start doubting ourselves when an opportunity presents itself. Hey, you should start a podcast, or hey, you should speak in front of your team about XYZ, or whatever it is. And that's when the doubt thing starts coming in, and we actually jeopardize ourselves from doors that are actually being opened for us, but we almost like self-sabotage. And that's why it's great to have great friends and people that won't speak to you like you speak to yourself sometimes, and go, no, you can do this. And that's why I love seeing you guys do this podcast together, because I'm sure you do that to each other, and you just have that confidence where you're like, we can do this, high five.
Yeah.
Well, that's how the podcast started, right? Because we were just sending messages to each other all of the time.
Yeah.
And then we were just like, we should put this,
Yeah.
like actually record this and share this with other people as we work through everything ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, right there, Emily, you've hit the cause often for what's labeled imposter syndrome. Is everyone thinks that everyone else has got it together, has made it, this, that, and the other. It's not true. We had one of our charity partners come to our conference last year. He's the CEO of World Vision, the biggest non-for-profit in the globe, also here in Australia. And he was saying, I've been to the White House. This is what he was saying. And he goes, you think the White House, right? Like, of all the places in the globe, that's the place that's got to be the most together, and they've just got it all dialed. He's like, no. Like, when you go in, it's just offices with everyday people doing what they do and making decisions, and that's it. And so often we have this thing like, this person would do it, that person would do it. He was talking about world issues. Like, we all think, oh, they're going to do it. Who's they? But it's like, we're all just everyday people doing everyday things. And so that whole thing of comparison, because comparison's such a thief. Like, I don't know if you've heard this quote around comparison's a thief of joy. It truly is, because we compare ourselves to X, Y, Z, and we're like, oh, they've got it all together, but they don't. We're all literally just having a go. And so when we realize that and turn up as our true, authentic self, there's no imposter in that, because you're not trying to be something you're not. Just turn up as yourself, and people actually really resonate with that. People actually want true and authentic. People are over the masking, the curated, the highlights of life. They're like, no, give me the real stuff. And so I love that you guys are like, yeah, let's just have a crack and let's just do this and press record while we do it.
But that's why, like, that is literally why children are amazing, because there is something in children where, like, I think the younger they are, the more innocent they are.
Yeah.
And they really pick up whether someone's being genuine or not.
Yes.
And
for sure.
I learned this like really early on in my career, because at uni, they encourage you, mask professionalism, hide yourself. You need to be this persona. You need to be this person. And so I would go into clinic rooms thinking I needed to be like very serious, and I could make jokes. But then I was with children, so it was very counteractive, because children respond to play and they respond to smiles and things like that. But I found that children would then sort of be suspicious of you because you weren't being genuine. Like, they could pick it up without you even having to say anything. Like, children are simple like that. And if we're working with children, that's what we need to be aware of. Like, you need to show up as yourself, be genuine. Uni drill that into you. I'm sure most institutions drill that into you. And when you do get someone who comes in and they're very professional, like if that happens with me, I go, oh, like I kind of like step back a bit, and then I go, oh, hang on, like it's a bit of a shock, because you can tell so easily when someone's not being genuine or themselves, which makes you distrust them immediately, right?
So true.
But it's something like that. Again, it's a principle that you can apply to your work, to your relationships with people that you're with. And if you're feeling like you can't be yourself, like Alana said, it's stepping back and going, well, think this through, like, why, what are the triggers, what's happening here, having that self-awareness to go, what's happening in this relationship, whoever it's with. But that has just brought so much light to what we call imposter syndrome. And I guess now I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop referring to it as imposter syndrome. I think let's call it a different word. But that's just the wording that's come about. That's the wording that's come out, like, from uni and things like that, like on socials. And
it's interesting, because I think it's like, that's one of the things, like culture, like modern culture today, it will call it that, but I'm telling you, in 5 years it'll change. It'll change to something else. And so, but I think, and I'm sure especially like when you're working with children, as both of you are, and you do have to be sensitive into how you label. Like, you don't want to label children a certain thing. So why are we labeling adults? And even when you just like literally that definition, when you look at the word imposter, a person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others, especially for fraudulent gain. I'm like, we're not doing that. That's actually not the
it's
core
so
thing.
refreshing. That is so refreshing, isn't it? Because when you just look at the meaning, and it's like how you were looking at the meaning, I can't remember what insecurity, like
Yeah.
look at like breaking it down and just looking at it, it
Mm.
makes you go, oh, wait a second, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Like it kind of just causes you to pause, doesn't it?
Yes. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes we're a victim of circumstances or environments or lies that we're believing, where if you just go, hang on a sec, let me just, because that's the thing, how culture and trends work, it's a wave. And sometimes we find ourselves jumping on waves and just going, well, and it's an interesting one because people have anchored to that word imposter syndrome. And it's like, oh, okay, we all know what it means. So we all talked about, not good enough, this, that, and the other. But I'm like, but that's not imposter. Not feeling good enough or not feeling like you belong or that type of stuff. That's like identity stuff. And that's fine, but just call it that. And then I think you then get the breakthrough. But when you keep calling yourself something which at the core of it, to be honest, is actually a lie. We're not doing it because we want to deceive, and we're not doing it for a fraudulent gain. So stop calling it that, because you're subconsciously claiming that that's part of you. And you're like, no, that's actually not true. It's not true. You actually keep going down that spiral because you go, I suffer from imposter. I suffer from imposter. The next thing is I am an imposter. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And again, that's based like, because imposter, fraudulent, that's all like lies. It comes from that same thing instead of truth. And what's the truth about me? And then, sometimes we'll be in things where we'll get triggered and that lie will come back because it's familiar. But then you're like, no. And often that will come from things of childhood and this, that, and the other. But then you go, no, that's actually not true about me. And then we get to turn up in life with confidence, not proud, because sometimes that imposter thing, wearing a mask, it's often laced with pride too. Like, look at me, I know it all. I'm what's the language? The authority in this space. It's like, oh, geez, careful. Like, just turn up humbly, wanting to serve others. And I loved like I was thinking of you guys when I was going to hop on today. You're exactly right. Your listeners have that heart posture of wanting to help others. Like if you're in the health industry, that's what your heart is. So I'm almost certain that none of your listeners would be imposters.
No, absolutely not.
100%. They've got that heart where they want to help. And I think if you turn up authentically like that, and even for your young listeners who are right at the start of their career, like I was thinking, my middle son had speech therapy. So I experienced that space of health providers. And to be honest, I'm a mum that has no idea about that space. So even if you were first year out of uni, you're one step ahead of me. So that's great. Like I'm not needing much. And so when you try and fake it till you make it, and then like people can see through that. Whereas if you turn up with a heart to go, I'm here and I want the best for me, for your son, and we want to get him through that, like I'll respond to that because I'm like, awesome, let's do this together. And I think that helps too. If we just go about our interactions with people from that humble-hearted position of I need you and you need me. There is a bit of this thing where people are wanting to be the hero and like you all need me. I'm like, nah, that's a slippery slope. If we just turn up and go, like, even from like a bigger picture humanity, like that's where unity comes from. Instead of going, my way's the right way, my opinion's the right way. It's like, no, we can have differing opinions, but still be united. It's all good. And if we come in with that heart, I need you, you need me, then we'll flourish. And so for like your listeners, especially with that, it's like, you don't have to know all the answers. People love that you're just honest, and then we can work it out together.
Yeah. I always say that to my new grads. You don't need to know everything. It's about connection. You just need to connect. 100%. If you can connect, you're good.
Yeah. Sounds like we like and roll the same way, Lizzy.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything you've said, because I think everything we've been speaking about in the last 2 seasons of the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As in, like, it's so important. It's like you're from a totally different industry and you're still saying, these things as well. And it's like everyone is together in this. And I think the biggest thing is like having that greater vision, having that greater purpose, going like, how can I serve? And then if I'm not sure, just being myself and going, I'm not sure, I'm really needing help with this. I'm needing help. And that's not well, it's a simple thing to say, right? But it can be a lot harder. It's easier to say it than to actually do it.
Yes.
But I think that's why, like, taking it back to the start, why you were saying culture is so important, finding the right workplace is so important, because that's where you will grow. Because if you are experiencing these things, someone will say, like Alana said, like someone will encourage you, or someone will say, no, that's not right. Or, you know, you can actually voice what's going on in your head so that you can actually get it out and deal with it. And that's really what you're looking for when you're finding a workplace or a community. I like the word community rather than using it as a workplace, because it is so much more than that. Like we said, it's a
100%.
community,
Spending so much
together.
time. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like finding that community that is going to support you, and it's give and take, right? So to be the best that you can be, like we speak about, I'm always talking to them about best professional, but also best person. That's what makes my job most meaningful, is that they're in growing in themselves, but then also, you know, a great clinician, and, you know, and having a great balance with your life and things like that. That's really what you're looking for out of community, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you ever get there. Like you get there, but then a new season, or, you know, you're dealing with something else and you're always needing that support.
Yes.
But you don't reach a point and then you're like, oh, I don't need community anymore.
No, yeah. And I think one of the things that help a flourishing community, whether that be in a workplace environment or a sporting community or whatever community you find yourself in, is thinking as an individual, am I here coming into this community just to consume, or am I contributing? And so again, this is this thing of giving and receiving. And so I think that makes the most healthiest communities is when we come in with that heart posture of going, I've got something to bring, but also I can receive from others as well. And if everyone does that, that's like a recipe for like a humming team or a humming community.
And I feel like it's like, if you can be you, if you're free to be you in that community, that's the right community for you. Like if I think about when I met my husband, bit off topic, but when I met my husband, my best friend was like, he's the one, because this is the first time I've seen you be you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it's the same thing with teams, isn't it? Like you can go and it's safe to be you.
Yeah.
Because when you are you, and that is your superpower, like no one can take that from you. Like that's it in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for leaders who are in the position of trying to create culture and trying to create community around this thing around belonging, Lizzy, what you were saying, and that you feel like I can be my authentic self. One of the best ways to help foster that environment where people feel like they belong is to question yourself, am I doing this way and helping create this environment, but that people belong not because of what they believe or how they behave. That's huge. If you can, like, that is a huge superpower for a leader. If you can make people feel and know that they belong, not because of how they behave or because of what they believe, you will win the hearts of people, and they will come together in community on the mission and purpose for why your organization exists or your community exists or your team or whatever. Because a lot of disunity that happens, because community is common unity. Look at me, Lizzy, pulling all these words apart.
Love it. I love it.
Community is common unity. The opposite is disunity. How much disunity do we see over our planet over the last few years? Just this uprising of like, this is my opinion, I should vax or not vax, or Black Lives Matter, or like just full on. But if you peel it back, it's about making people feel like they belong, and they don't have to believe everything you believe, and they don't need to behave how you think they need to behave. That's where you'll get authentic. You won't get authentic when people feel like, I've got to believe what this person says and I have to behave a certain way. Otherwise you just have robots, and that's not community. That's just like fake. That's
artificial harmony.
Artificial harmony. There'll be a word for that.
Love it.
But I love that, Lizzy, that you knew that. And so you've had that as one of your true north experiences of like, no, with my husband, I felt like I could be myself. Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't mean it's always been fun the whole way. I'm sure I've been married for a long time. But you've got to keep coming back to common unity, not disunity when we have those arguments with our spouses.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no artificial harmony in my
No, it's like it's on or it's off. No. I'm being my true, authentic self, and right now it's really annoyed with you. Oh, geez.
Oh, so funny.
So now with ProPurpose, how many, what does that look like for you? Like, how many businesses do you have? And what, if someone's listening to this and they're like, I really want to work with Alana.
Me.
Really
how do we do this?
Have we recruited? We've got this really fun thing within ProPurpose that we call Who's Your One? And this is how you take something from starting stages, like we started 9 months ago. We've got over 40 businesses. How on earth do you get to 70,000 businesses by 2035? To be honest, it's actually really easy. And it's what we call Who's Your One? We're wanting to create this viral movement of intentional generosity amongst businesses. It's every business is doing a little bit, and together we can have impact. So it's kind of like you were talking about before, Em, with some of your listeners. There might be an individual person like, what's the impact I can have? And you can kind of discount yourself. Whereas when you do things in common unity, you can go, well, I can do my little bit and you can do your little bit. And Emily's doing, what's Emily doing? She's helping children education in Uganda. And, another business that I talked about earlier is doing maternity care. Another one's doing water wells, and other people are doing homelessness in Australia. And so if we can create this movement of generous businesses across Australia where even consumers go, oh, that's a ProPurpose business. It's almost going to be like a brand of, I don't want to say certification, but people go, oh, like you used to have the Australian made symbol.
Yeah.
The authentic one. We want the authentic ProPurpose one where people are like, oh, we know what that business stands for. So yeah, we have this thing, Lizzy, Who's Your One? And we encourage all our partners, who's your one business that you can bring? Look at these dogs in the background.
Lizzy's dogs are there. The listeners know about Lizzy's dogs.
They're not in common unity at the moment. They're in disunity. I could see that.
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to put them outside. Wait.
We'll just pause for it. They'll just cut this.
No problems. Who does your editing?
A guy one of our VAs in the Philippines.
How good's that?
Yeah. His name's Freddie. So we will just give this to him and
he's like, all right,
cut this out, Freddie. And then he does all the back end as well.
Awesome. Do you guys share the same VAs?
Well, this one we do, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
It comes through the company that I have my VAs with.
Yeah.
So cut this out, Freddie. Now we'll go again.
Okay, sorry, Freddie.
Sorry.
No, that's good. So we have this idea, Who's Your One? So each ProPurpose businesses that's in our community now, each year they go, oh, what one business friend can I bring to join? And then that happens year after year, and that's how it becomes a snowball movement. So Lizzy, you're actually Emily's one. You may not have even known, but she's like, Lizzy's going to be my one. And here you are going, I'm in.
Have you actually said that? Yeah. Oh, what?
Yeah, she was like, "Who's your one?" I was like, "Oh, Lizzy." But I'm like, she'll
good.
I think
how we talked to Lizzy about earlier on in the podcast around right thing, but maybe not right time.
Yeah.
So maybe Emily just knew, yep, this is going to come, but I don't know when the time is, and then here we are. 12 months is a long time.
So interesting. I've got it on my goals. I've got charity, and I just don't know where to start.
No,
I just don't know where to start. And so, and like you say, it hasn't been the right time, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to speak to her. I need to book in a chat.
And that's what, I'm so aware of that. Like, we have been in this space of small to medium business. We're now a medium-sized business, but we've done the journey from a startup right through. And the reality is, when you're a small to medium business owner, or you're in a business that is a small to medium business, and you might even be a staff member that goes, I'm not the owner, but gosh, I'd love our business to do something. Because, across Gen Z and millennials, the second most important factor for them when they're looking for an employment is, does this business have a deeper sense of purpose outside of its core, like, product and service?
Wow.
Like, the young'uns are wanting to connect with businesses that are connected to purpose and charitable impact. But you're right, Lizzy, it stays on the list, stays on the to-do list, stays on your rocks list, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Because we're busy building and leading our businesses. So many businesses want to have impact, but not sure how, not sure where to start, don't have the team, don't have the time.
Yeah.
And that's literally why ProPurpose started. We're a non-profit we were able to do what we did in our business because I had that luxury of working on the business, not in. And literally we were like, well, let's share it with a whole bunch of other businesses and let's just multiply our impact. So it's not money making for ProPurpose. It's literally like, I'm a full-time volunteer for ProPurpose, and I've been able to attract other volunteers, and we have, in our very startup stage, we've got one employee for a couple of days a week. But yeah, our heart is how do we make giving with purpose simple for businesses?
Yeah.
So plug and play into your business, super easy, seamless. And so you'll be having impact, Lizzy, and haven't had to do anything. We do all the heavy lifting for you. So
yeah, amazing. Sounds really, really good.
Yeah. Can't wait to see what the impact's going to
be. Yeah. So you'd probably be education, I guess, as well.
Or maybe not. Interesting. No.
Yeah, do school for life.
Could be.
So now you have 40 businesses with ProPurpose, and you're growing every day. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you, our business owners who are listening, or even if you're an employee, just because you're an employee, don't discount yourself. You can take this to your boss or your business owner. If you're in that really supportive workplace or community, this is what people are wanting to do. You're wanting to have impact as health professionals. So how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can jump onto our website, www.propurpose.org, and then just check us out, fill in a form, and then we'll get in contact with you and help build a giving strategy for your business.
Yeah. And I think we have a ProPurpose page on our website, I think, as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm always posting stuff on Instagram about the impact that we've had, because I love every month we get a tracker from you, so it tells us how we've contributed and how many days of education. So I love always sharing that with my community. So I do have posts on my Instagram as well, which you can see the Ugandan children, which you'd be able to find Alana through that as well, like through ProPurpose on socials. And just like, I don't know about other people, but when I'm always looking at stuff, I always check out their socials and I suss out like their website and all that. And I like to get a lot of information. So if you're one of those people as well, then you can, look at Alana's socials, like ProPurpose socials and all that sort of back end as well, to see more about what they do and all the different projects that you do.
Yes. And you may find Emily's face on there because she is a ProPurpose partner, and she it was very cool, Em, for your business to get the opportunity with Channel 9. Yeah. And Channel 9's been looking for good news stories. So we had a television producer reach out to us and say, we see what you're doing in all these amazing businesses. We need to highlight more. So there's opportunities there for businesses to connect with us to share their story with what their business is doing, because people love hearing about these good news stories where people are wanting to make the world a better place. And so it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alana. This has
been pleasure.
Really amazing, an amazing conversation. And I think it's going to be so helpful for all of our listeners, and so many key gold nuggets and learnings in there. So thank you so much for your time today. Lizzy, did you have anything else?
Yes, I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you. I can't wait to listen back, and like Em and I have to listen to everything, and usually I'm like really fast, and I'm sitting here going, I can't wait to listen to this one and actually write some things down and take it back to my team. I think you've just some absolute gold nuggets. So really, really appreciate your time.
Too kind, ladies. Well, it's such a joy. I love seeing when people come together in collaboration and build beautiful things together, because it's not always easy. We come with our differing ways and what have you, but if we lean into that, we can create some real gold. And I can see that with you girls. So well done for putting yourself out there and saying yes. And I hope your listeners get heaps out of it, because I know you're putting all your heart and soul into it. So
thank you, Alana.
Thanks for turning up authentically as yourselves. I love
it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, girls.
All right, thanks.